Okay, so this is what I got after analyzing the best current Omen Pro players in Tier 1, and this is Boo from Team Heretics that I analyzed. And this is their defense breakdown. He really just plays A. Pistol round, he always starts elbow. I would pause to read everything here, but I'll try to go over it. Okay, so before I actually get into the video, this is so obvious that I forgot to note it down. But if they're pushing B site, you want to be smoking main right there. That's only when they're executing on, okay? Like that's when they're executing on and you have people on site fighting, you want to be smoking main. Or if it just seems like a lot B main, then you smoke B main, you know? Like normal smoke stuff. But there are cases where you might not want to smoke because you're going to be having a Cypher on Sunset most of the time. He might have like a one-way cage right there. So in that case, you know, you might not want to smoke that. So you want to communicate with your Cypher player if you have one, if they want to smoke or not. But yeah, it was it's so obvious that I forgot to note it down in the video. So I needed to add this clip to make sure he actually smoked B main, not thinking accidentally you don't smoke that, because I didn't say that. I got to go over it. So whenever playing an Omen on defense Sunset, you always want to be doing this one way right here. The only case you don't do this one way is if you're pushing Ace or if you're pushing B main and you're on B main. So you should be on B main if you're pushing B main. So you always want to do that one way. You want to do the float down version, because if you do the one that connects to the floor like that, it's a bit really low. It's hard to see their feet. And when you do this one way too, make sure it's towards their side and the leftmost edge. That way it's the most advantageous towards your team. Now, especially on pistol round, you're gonna be pushing from elbow, especially on pistol. And you're not actually pushing like on pistol because you don't really have the util, you know, and the get out of jail free cards. So what you're doing on pistol is just having an info contact, and then you're just hopping away towards here. And if it ever seems like they're hard rushing you, like if they jet dash or race satchel, you know, like off rip, then do this blind and run away. And you're really just playing for a retake on this side in most cases, and you're gonna be doing a smoke elbow like that. And you're just holding that smoke. And if the smoke goes away, you're playing even farther back over here. And that's what you're doing. So I get there's a bunch of random util on the screen as I was just taking note of what util they're doing. And there's no text here. But basically on a normal round, so non-pistol round, you're gonna be trying to push the one way kinda consistently, probably like 2/3 of the time. And there's two ways that this is done. You either have a 3 stack and you pinch from both sides. You're typically gonna be starting elbow, but probably like 30% of the time you're on the right side. But it's just better for you to go left because you could do that Omen blind like this one right here. They're out. But if you do the 3 people, you're gonna have a flash type initiator. Do a flash to secure it harder. This is done when they tend to disrespect that one way, or they like util out to push past the one way. That's when it's done like that. But if they do respect the one way and they're pretty scared to push out, then you usually just push with 2 people. You just double hold that smoke right there, and the other guy's gonna get. So you might have noticed this smoke right here. This is a more uncommon smoke. And this smoke is done when they push past this one way right here, like if they util out and stuff. But you notice they're stalling out the push, or maybe they're too scared to like keep scaling up fast. You do that smoke when it doesn't seem they're really pushing out.
Cover going out.
And you only do that smoke if you have someone on this side watching, not from the other side. Sometimes you can do it with 2 people, but only do the smoke if you have someone on the right side too. That's just to stall them off more, you know. The reason we're doing that smoke too is we don't want to be peeking out here when they could have already pushed past the one way, and there could be just people scaling up, like, or the whole team just looking at you, you know. that smoke.
Cover going out.
Wait for you to push out that smoke or just stall out for 16 seconds as you smoke. Okay, so we're gonna be going a little bit of blinds. I'm gonna try to go fast, but this blind was a more situational blind rather than a strap blind, I'm pretty sure. And they did this more for the elbow player when they're getting pushed, and if you're playing the right side, they did that so they swing out. And I'm pretty sure they did that blind when it was smoked here. Do not swing with that blind, especially if it's not smoked. I wouldn't even swing it anyways, because it's really risky to swing that. And this blind right here, I think I already went over it, but you're just doing that blind if your right player here needs support, or they push past the one way, or you just want to stall them as you're backing out. It is pretty common for the pro players to actually just use their own blind to stall, to reposition, like run away, you know, rather than to peek with a blind. So do not be too worried about hanging out onto your blind there. Now for this blind right here, was if they're already holding sight, you know, there's like 3 people on your team, maybe it's like a late round, they don't have that much time, so you decide to hold on site itself. Then you're going to be doing that blind when they walk out A. Preferably you have the one-way setup here in that case. This blind is retake blind. It's really situational, they only did that once again. But if you know they're kind of pushed up over here, you can do that blind. Pretty nice. Now going back to the first one. You notice these 2 blinds, these are the most important blinds. Well, this one's really important too. But these 2 blinds are really important for your A play. The first one is the flood retake blind. You do this if you already have at least 3 people, including yourself, ready to flood retake onto A. And in this case, you want to be smoking elbow. They want to be blinding out when they're coming out and just swing out. And when they're executing on site, usually this would be smoked off, so you could go in the smoke for the blind when you throw it. Now the second blind is for the retake blind. You want to be going behind that box right there and blinding so it gets this corner and all a gen. And you're gonna be always retaking, by the way, you're gonna always be retaking from CT on A. And I'll go over this later too, but for B, you're always gonna be retaking market. The only situational case you're not retaking market is if you're Omen ulting. The 2 Omen ults they tried in the 6 games I watched was right here. This one got super punished. It's really risky. But okay, so here's one common play for A side. This is if you're doing a super deep push. And you could adapt it for different comps, but your job is always going to be the same as Omen. I'd be smoking here right away, run up while you're doing that smoke, and as soon as you touch the wall, you blind. Use your knife to run faster and support your duelist player reheating it here. Now you don't want to over push this section, and you're really just holding the smoke honestly, but try not to overheat too much. Only let your duelist player push into spawn. Do not push into spawn, that is going too far for you. Okay, so this is a second play for A site for you. And this is a really nice play, because if you've been playing Omen, how the video's been going over, you've been conditioning your enemies that you've been alone on one side of here. And every time, especially on the elbow cases, every time you spotted someone, you just start running back towards CT. So they're going to be less ready for that fight. And they're also not going to be ready for the second player hiding in the corner, because you've always been alone on one side. And you also want to do this one way right here to make them more inclined into pushing elbow right here, because that's one way off. Now you want to do that one way when it seems like they've pushed past this one way right here. Like they use you to out, or you hear the noise, then you want to one-way that after. Okay, so when you one-way this, it's the same as the other one-way. You want to get it right on the corner. You don't want to make it touch the ground because it'll go too low. So you want to make it float down.
Cover going
That.
out.
And you're again doing this one way, so they're pushing it
Here.
into your side over here. And when you hold this, you're holding a pixel angle. And as soon as you see someone, you're gonna pop a shot in back right. And if it seems like they're pushing, then do the
Stay
blind.
in sight.
Now, some cases, they might walk up over here, so you can't really one-way that because you don't know. And in cases like that, you don't want to refresh that one way because you're trying to make them push onto your side. And in that case, as soon as you see them, you don't want to try to pop the one way right away because you have a second guy watching you anyways. If they didn't use any util to push you out, then you probably have time to do that one way right there,
Traveling.
kind of sloppily. And if they're still pushing, then do the blind to support right after you one way. But you don't want to waste that blind, so if there's someone here, you pop that shot, and it doesn't seem like they're actually pushing out, because you still have this guy watching, right? Then you want to re-clear this after a bit together. So when you do this blind, you want to blind like as shown, and you could blind off 3 scenarios. One, your second guy sees this guy pushing out, it shows on the map, or they call it out. The second is if they're just running up here trying to chase after you, like after you have that contact, then just do the blind. And third is if they're using util to push this, then do the blind. So when you're doing this play, you don't want to hard commit too much. Once you take those first fights, you want to back out together and probably play retake on site. But you could also try to hold on site, like your duelist player plays this area. You're playing kind of over here as support. And this is when that blind comes into play. Like when they push out main, the duelist player swings that. And you're kind of watching elbow till then. Now covering back to what we covered earlier, like pistolish, when you're holding this. Make sure to use your TPs to run away if it seems you could get killed at all. You don't want to die. You have 2 TPs, please use them. And they didn't really go up here at all. They did go up here sometimes, but more often than not, they're just on a low ground. But that is a play you could do. And you could look over to smoke right here.
Cover going out.
That, and watch into elbow. I would do this with a Vandal and a Phantom. And again, whenever you're in these off-angle high ground spots, as soon as you spot, you just want to drop down. And whenever you drop down too, you want to shoot once. That way, like massive floor if you're jumping down. As shown. You could also, by doing that consistently, you could also fake you jump down. Another lookup spot you could do, same type of thing, is you TP up here, and you look over the smoke.
Shadows traveling.
And peek into here. You could either wait for the off angle or swing out. You really only want to swing for this fight specifically when they're pushing out, because they're usually going to be moving towards this way. And that's when you take that fight, especially if they're trying to fight someone else. But with the way you're playing, that's probably less common, because you're going to be playing retake on A. So you're really going to be up here if anything. But again, most cases they don't play up there. This is the retake blind already covered, but you want to angle it a little higher up. That way it gets this top gen 2. If you don't angle it high enough, then it won't get gen. Like anyone up there potentially. But if you do it too high, then this guy won't get blinded. But you can get both if you do it perfectly. So do go into custom game to test out later. So you're almost always going to be smoking back, but some cases you do smoke them one way. That's if you're holding strong side A, so like 3 people A, and you're still alive. Then you can stall the push more. You do that one way instead of the elbow smoke. But you're still spawning for elbow. Again, you're not taking hard fight. Your whole A plan is just to play retake essentially. But you could do a support blind if we're floating on, you know. But you're really just playing for info. pop a shot if they're there, but don't take the extra fight. And if they're B-sided, so it's like mid-round, they're low on time, you want to rotate because it really doesn't seem like A at all. You're still going to be anchoring A, but you're going to be over here so you get faster rotate. But again, you're the A anchor, you're not going to be fast rotating off A ever. You're only going to be like hard rotating off when you know for sure. And that's when they're hard executing onto B site, or they're planting the bomb on B site, that's when you rotate. But if on those cases where you think it's really not going to be A, you're going to be playing this area, and you're really just watching for this potential lurk that tries to push into mid-top from there, catch them for a free kill. You're also going to be occasionally watching this, probably like every 7 seconds, I don't know, just to see if they're pushing out from screens, or if they want A site and they're trying to get more space and get a kill because they didn't see anyone. As noted before, when you're playing A side on a normal run, you have one here and one here. The reason why you're playing left side more commonly is for that blind, in case you forgot. But here are the two cases when you play right side. Again, less common, but here are the cases. So first case is you don't really think they're gonna push A. Like you noticed earlier on defense, they don't really prefer A at all. And or you might specifically think they're not pushing A this round because it was so strong and they just tried that. Then you're gonna be starting on this right side. And the reason for that is so you can support mid. And the second reason that I was talking about earlier to start right side is if your team wants to do something mid. Okay, so if your team wants to do something mid, a case example is they want to peek tiles from market, or they want to push out mid, say like to want to push out this smoke. Whenever you're doing something mid, whenever your team is doing something mid, you want to do this smoke right here. And this spot's kind of awkward because it's so big and they can walk out. But they don't do this smoke, they do it back there. So do that smoke. I'm sure there's pro reasons why. I think the reason is this smoke lets them walk out. And there's also that curve right there, which lets them walk out that way safe, while limiting the angles they take the fights on. So do that back smoke. And for the blind, you want to do this blind. It does get this back wall, by the way, it doesn't show on Valorant. But it will blind all these spots right here. So it's very strong. You only do that blind if your team's gonna push out mid. So second mid type support you do is a one way in market. You do this if it seems like it's gonna be a B split and they're pushing mid, or they're just gonna push into market. Then you do this one way right here. You want to make it touch the ground like that. Make it go lower. It doesn't really let you see the feet right there, but really deters them. And if they do walk into the smoke, their feet are gonna be sticking out, so it makes it harder to push market. Though I've kept saying you're the A anchor, technically when you're playing right side, you're not so much as the hard anchor, because occasionally you might have your elbow player be the spotter instead, and you rotate towards mid top. And in this case, if that's the scenario, you're gonna be smoking tiles still, and if it seems like they're pushed out mid enough, and your team's ready to push, you're gonna be blinding out as shown and take that fight. So here's a bunch of random smokes. They occasionally did on post plant. I'll go over each of them. But again, for every retake on B site, you're gonna be pushing market. And if you got a blind, you're usually gonna be doing this blind. It blinds anyone in this, and also blinds everyone's stairway. It's a really strong blind for you. Now on a normal B smoke, you're gonna be doing that smoke. That's the smoke you're always gonna do. You're not gonna be smoking main. That smoke main is horrible for Sunset. This is like Pearl B long. You do not want to be smoking this. You want to be isolating a side and smoking
Cover going out.
because the left is where they could be hiding more and have a bigger crossfire angle with a high low too. And it's easier to check this angle. So you want to be isolating the left by smoking that. If you got the extra smoke, then smoke the bomb. but always smoke here.
Shadows
Very
traveling.
important on the retake. You don't want to be smoking that until you think your teammates can swing here or here. Because you don't want that smoke to be over
Cover going out.
and give time for the enemy team to play around it. But also so the smoke doesn't disappear as you're trying to defuse the bomb and take fights. Now for these actual smokes I was gonna go over. This smoke right here, this is done when they're pushing onto site and you want to flood out.
Cover going out.
Because you're already pretty stacked with your team. You do that smoke to clear this angle. And you're trying to contain them in that space because you'll have teammates push out CT too. You're really just trying to contain them hard into that front section. Now the second smoke, a bit more uncommon, but they did this smoke if they wanted to get onto site and they had like no util. This is when they did that smoke because it helps them run onto site safer since it blocks off all of main basically and lets them walk out like this while still having cover. So that's a pretty strong smoke too they did.
Cover going out.
To isolate, isolate fights again. Now, this smoke, very uncommon. This is more of an attacker smoke honestly, but they did this, I think it was only 1 or 2 rounds. The reason why they did this is because they knew their CT really top hard that their CT. And they're trying to like re-clear site. They did that smoke.
Shadows traveling.
To like push out here a bit to re-clear. That's when you do that smoke. So this one's not really a retake smoke. So it's really this one
traveling.
to flood on, and this one
Cover going out.
retake when you have no util. Okay, so for Omen ults, you're almost always going to be ulting into this corner right here. And if you do ult in this corner, do that blind when you go out. And again, you're just smoking that left side to isolate this right section. And smoke the bomb too. Always smoke the bomb if you got extra smoke. But the only time Omen ever started B site on Team Heretics when they're heavy pushing B main. And what you're gonna do in this scenario is you're gonna be one-waying that thing right there. You want to make it as low as possible and do a pre-round.
Cover going out.
And it's one way super strong, you hold it from stairway. You want to be as low as possible again so someone can't see from way back there potentially. And you do want it centered. Honestly, probably a little, like probably one way right there, just so it blocks off that. And there's 2 ways to push this. You either just push from B main, or you're just supporting from market. Team Heretics often did this one. I think they only did this once or twice, but I personally think this is downright horrible. The reason for that is Paranoia doesn't full blind. So anyone that got blinded over here, they're just gonna be holding you, perfectly be able to see you, possibly shoot your head. So I do not think that one way is good. I mean, the blind's good at all. So I suggest pushing here. This is what I do with my Omen duo and ranked all the time too. And for the blind, you don't want to be blinding right away. You only blind if there's heavy footsteps that we know they're B main as we're pushing. Or your duelist player who goes in first has contact of players in B main. That's when you blind. If not, then you're not going to be blinding. Now, if you're the one that pushed B main, you're going to be re-smoking this one way right here. And just holding the stairway. I did it too much left. Or I guess you could play from here, but yeah. You're just holding the one way and refreshing it. And rotate later, possibly. And if you still have your blind and you're playing B main, you could do a blind support market for your market player. If you haven't got the message yet throughout this video, general rule of thumb on your defense is you're soft contesting space and you fall back pretty easy. So if they like util you out with that one way, if you're playing B main, then just back out. And once you do back out, or maybe you rotate it because you think it's going to be A site, so you want to be a safer rotation. Then you play this area in the corner right here, this right corner. You can TP out if you need to. But that's where their Omen player always played on B site, the few rounds they ever played B site. So they only did this once, but if you're really late on the A rotation, I suggest flanking, not flanking, but rooting into mid off of A. You're doing this to catch a potential relurker, like a reflank on the enemy team trying to go into market. And again, you just always retake it into market whichever pathway you go. In case I haven't noted it earlier, you're always retaking into market here. Doesn't really matter which way you go, but always going to market. You're only cutting through mid if you're really late on that A rotate, or maybe you're trying to push mid with someone, if that's the scenario. But I'm going to be covering a little bit more stuff, but in case you haven't, please read all of this. It's your general path breakdown of Sunset for you on Omen, especially on Ace site. I'm going to be covering a little bit more stuff that the Team Heretics player didn't do, but that's all I got from analyzing the mighty chubby boo player from Team Heretics. So one thing to note that you should really know, it's the TP up here, very strong angle. If you're over here for some reason, you could look over this
Cover going
smoke
out.
right here and get a free pick usually on the people that walk out. And again, once you're noted up here, I wouldn't stay up there, very risky angle. Like on those high grounds once you're noted. You usually more often than not lose those fights once you get spotted. You also want to go up here if you're doing that market one way.
Shadows traveling.
It's even stronger for you holding that angle. And if you're the only one market, I don't know why you're playing here if you're listening to the video, but
Cover
if you
going
are,
out.
then I would make the smoke go higher instead of touching the floor. So you want it to make them think market's a bit more safe and more willing to push into market a little bit. So you want to make it go high like that, because you can't get spotted from the Taos player anyway since you're up
Here.
Now, second play, I think's really strong, is you want to be blinding. Oh, you want to get into this corner right away as soon as the round starts, and blinding
Stealing
like
sight.
that once they push out, and swing from the right side, always the right side. And you have Neon or Breach stun
Here.
once they push out, and peek with view. And just TP out basically. Even if you're noted with like a fade or Soba dart, you want to stay here and
Stealing sight.
commit to the blind. Because they're gonna be blinded, they can't do anything to you.
Blinding.
If you blind them like that, it's just free kills for you. They're gonna be in the open, trying really hard to kill you, Again, just TP out in that case. One thing you could try doing, I think this is more for ranked, but what old pro teams did on Sunset was they had this one way right here.
Shadows traveling.
And the reason for that one way is not to block off this angle, but it's to block off the Cypher camera over here. By doing that one way, you threaten a potential person pushing up B main or hiding in one of these rack corners. So that's a smoke you really want to keep note of. It could be pretty strong in certain situations, so definitely know of that smoke. So last thing I have to note for defense is Team Heretics tried to do that
Watch them
ult
run.
one of the rounds, he got
My
punished
ultimate is ready.
instantly. If you are gonna do that type of flank ult, I think it's better for you to ult right here. If you're lucky, people aren't gonna hear you, because if you're unlucky, there's gonna be a player here and they hear you. But you could get away with them not hearing you. This is like your audio circle, And you don't want to TP here 'cause more people could. It gives more range and B main for people to hear. You want to TP here.
Watch them run.
And the
My
reason you're
ultimate is
TPing
ready.
here is just a Cypher
Here.
trade. Almost always if they have a Cypher. 'Cause Cyphers play so much on this map. But you could do that ult and try dry peeking, you know. And once you're noted, do a blind and you
Still
have
in
one.
sight.
But that could be a really strong ult potentially for you to do. And that's all I have for this Omen video. I tried to make it a lot shorter, Ethan. Like, I kept freaking restarting my recordings and it took, I think 3 hours, 2 hours is way too long. Probably not gonna do it again, honestly. Shorten it. Yeah.